Welcome to the MFR Coaches podcast, where we talk about how you can create a six-figure MFR practice. I'm your host, Heather Hommel. Not only have I been practicing MFR for 11 years, I'm also a life and business coach, especially for MFR therapists. My goal is for you to understand how to get fully booked, how to talk to your clients, and how to make sure they understand what's possible for them with MFR treatment. I'm here to help you stop under-earning, overworking, and burning out. I'll lend support so you can create the MFR practice you've always wanted. Learn how you can do it too, even if you live in a tiny town, and even if you're just starting out, and even if you've ran your practice for years. Let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the MFR Coaches podcast. I am joined today by one of my coaching students, Judy Raugewitz. Did I say that right?
You said that perfect.
All right. She is from Odessa, Missouri. Her business is called Inspired Body Therapy, LLC, and she runs that alongside her husband, Rick. Now, Odessa, Missouri is located near Kansas City, Missouri area for anyone that wants to know the geography of where Judy is from. Welcome to the show, Judy. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is exciting. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get into MFR? How long have you had your own business? What brought you to coaching? But let's start with how did you get into MFR?
There's a lot of years there to go through. Yeah. How much time do you have?
Give us the quick and dirty version.
Quick and dirty. I started back in 2002. I was working in the hospital and we did inpatient, outpatient, and home health. I'm an occupational therapy assistant. So at that time, when I was working at the hospital, my supervisor had an article about John Barnes' pediatric myofascial release. We were doing school districts at the time. We were seeing kids at the schools. And she said, I think you ought to do this. I did one of his classes back in the 80s and it's perfect. So I didn't know what it was, had no idea. So I just went in, said, okay, let's go. So she went with me. We went to the class. And of course, that class is all adults. And then at the end, they bring in a child and you see how they do it with a child. Well, with my idea, I was like, oh my gosh, this is for big people too. I totally went into it thinking it was only pediatrics.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so long story short, that was 2002. And my husband at that time, he was going through some trouble with pain. So mine is a personal and professional. I think some people have probably heard it in the seminars because I tell the story kind of in length in the seminars, but he had fallen from a lot of high falls and he's a construction worker, broke his back, his neck, his legs, a lot of electrocuted, things like that through the years. And so it was me going to this class and seeing what this could do for kids. And then my mind was going, oh my gosh, this could maybe help you. He had 3 spine specialists that were watching him because he had so much pain he couldn't work at the time without being on pain meds. If he's on a lot of pain meds, then he couldn't work because he was supervisor, had guys up on cranes. So with that, they wanted to replace the bone in his neck. They wanted to fuse one in his back. And he was very nervous about all that, surgeries and things like that. Mm-hmm. So lo and behold, John was in Kansas City area doing MFR1 within 3 months of me doing the PEDS class. So I went to that class and I saw kind of a wide variety. I saw how it was helping people. I saw what it could do for people. I saw some people unwinding. I was just like, oh my gosh, what is all this? And I got the book. And I took it home to him and I said, I think this can help you before you go to surgery.
Amazing.
And so he read the book and I was getting ready to go to more classes, but I was using this at the hospital. And at that time, at the same time, they were using me to do MFR on people outpatient. My supervisor said, okay, start trying it on the outpatients. And so I was doing that on outpatients and we were getting great results. And so they started pulling me into only doing that and not the other inpatient schools and things like that. And so I was kind of doing both. Then we sent Ralph to Therapy on the Rocks that August. This all happened within a 6 months time. By that August, I drove him out there. He was laying in the truck. He couldn't set up at the time, and drove him out there, left him for 3 weeks, went back 3 weeks later with the kids in tow, and he drove all the way back with no pain and didn't have pain for 5 years. I mean, didn't have any kind of pain medicine, nothing.
Wild.
So, that was like my wild story there. And while that was happening, then I started going to more classes. Mm-hmm. And it just, more and more people kept coming in the hospital. So fast forward a little bit, by 2005, I got my massage license, and Ralph got his massage license from a construction worker to a massage therapist, and went through John's classes. So we built the office I'm in, actually. We built this office in 2005 together and started kind of doing my own thing under massage therapy. So I didn't have to have a license. Scripts to see people or an OTR to do evals.
Amazing.
So that was part of that. And then by 2007, I was instructing in classes and helping, and then getting the office. We had the office going. I was doing kind of part-time back and forth with some PRN work and the office work. And Rob at Therapy on the Rocks had asked if I would be interested to come out and work at Therapy on the Rocks, because one of their people were moving and retiring. And I was honored. I was like, oh my gosh, but we had this place going, and we had a farm, and we had all this stuff. And so my kids were grown. So I took the opportunity and was honored to be able to go out there and go to work for him and learn more. I thought, this is great. So that's kind of that part. At that point, during that year, I learned a lot. I saw so many people from all over the world. It's amazing. We had people from Paris. I mean, the people back then, even, this was 2007. This is when little Odessa didn't like the word MFR. They thought it was voodoo, so we're trying to get the word out there. And it was amazing how many people I saw and what happened, and how they just, in that 2 or 3 week period, I saw what happened to Ralph. So anyway, I was there. And then unfortunately, about the end of the year, I came home for a visit, and Ralph passed away. I get emotional still a little bit about it. But
I would too.
Talk about it. But it's like my story's kind of up and down a lot with where I've been, and how MFR has been like the core of it ever since the day I went to the first class. He passed away, sudden heart attack. And, I had a full load the next week. So, and Rob had, can't imagine what he went through during that, because I just stayed home. I quit. I stayed home with the office here. They were awesome to me, and helped me through it. So at that point, I needed more of the MFR for me than I could give. To get through that. And so I was going through intensives and stuff, and kept the office going for a couple of years, and then went down to a small home office. So I've kind of gone the whole gamut. Had just one at the home, did it just part-time, tried to just keep going, at that point, and kind of get what I wanted to do. What did I want to, where was my goals? Because this office was my goal.
Yeah, it's amazing how one life event can change your perspective and your perception of what are my goals? Change your goals completely. So what did you end up deciding to do after your husband passed away and after the dust settled?
So when everything settled, I started a different office. Again, I was at my house and started revamping it, bringing it back up. I still had some clients that were very close, but I wasn't advertising. I was just keeping what I had and keeping close, and going to more seminars. I was still instructing and helping at Therapy on the Rocks. And so it just kind of kept me going again. I love being in that atmosphere and helping people.
Yeah. Can we just talk about that for just a second? What is that like, being chosen to work at Therapy on the Rocks, also being chosen to be an instructor? What is that like?
When they first asked me, I was out there for MFR3 and was doing MFR3 and with my husband at the time. And I was like, do you know what they just asked me?
Yeah.
This is awesome, because we had been driving around looking for places, thinking maybe we should get a place out here and just live out here. We loved Arizona.
Yeah. Well, and Sedona is just
and Sedona. And
amazing.
And we
Yeah.
didn't have, the kids were kind of grown. They were out of the house. So at that point, that was even after I'd been instructing for a while. I was instructing and I loved it, but I thought, oh my God, the opportunity to be able to live here and do it, because we were looking at just living in Arizona,
Yeah.
never even thought about working at Therapy on the Rocks. And I had been helping there and it just seemed like home to me. I guess I should say that. It wasn't like it was so excited, like this, wow, big thing. It seemed like, wow, this is home.
Hmm.
I always kind of thought of it that way. It was always like, wow, I'll get to be at home and then I'll get to be at home. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
And I always thought of it. So I did it.
Amazing.
It did. It just felt comfortable. It didn't feel like a big boom or, I don't know. If
Yeah. Well, which is probably better for your nervous system, right? If you're like,
It didn't make me nervous at all, really. It made me just feel comfortable. It was like, wow, how can this be happening that I can really love what I'm doing in a place I love in two places?
Yeah, that's so exciting. Okay, so you worked at Therapy on the Rocks and you continued to work there even after your husband passed away from time to time and continued to do instructing. And now, what is your practice like now? I guess my other question is, maybe before you answer that, is how did we meet? Like, what brought you into my orbit?
Right. So then, the fast forward all that stuff, I met Rick, who is in MFR. And so after a few years, I had met him, and he's in MFR and a PT. So we both opened up, clear down to just a couple years ago. We had offices all around. And we opened up this office again in Odessa that I had started way back then.
Okay. Are you in the same office, so like the same building and everything?
Yeah, we created this place from the ground up. Like, he was a construction worker. So my son and I and him created all the walls, made the intercoms.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we opened it up again a couple years ago.
Did you guys always own the building, or did you like sell the building or lease the building and then you just all of a sudden were able to get it back?
Yeah, it's a 2,000 square foot. It was completely empty. It was a new building at the time back in 2005. So we leased it back then, and I kept it for a couple more years after he passed away. And then it was just too big. It's got 5 rooms, a reception area, and I just felt overwhelmed. And so about 3 years ago, my daughter, one of her friends, owned this building now, and she just kept pushing me. She said, you've got to open that back up, because there was a nurses association that was in here that used the office space, and they didn't really do much to it. So like when I came in, I took the curtains down and they like poofed with dirt and stuff like that. So I came back in and redid it all. Yeah. So anyway, I remember I was on my mower and I'm listening to your podcasts. And I kept listening to him. And I thought, these just sound really cool. And I heard you say, some people want a jobby and some people want a job. And I just kind of stopped the mower for a little bit. And I thought, look back at all these years. I started this this office in 2005, and kind of my own personal journey. But I was like, I think I have a jobby. I just have a jobby, and I really need a job, because I want to do it full time more again. I was back and forth between part time, full time, because I always wanted it as a hobby when I retired. I thought, I'll just do it as a retire. And I thought, why am I waiting? And so I listened to a few more years, and I heard that again, the jobby and the job. And I thought, I need to know more about business. I love what I do. I love treating. I'm confident in treating and looking at the body and all the different scenarios. And I have unique ones still come up that are awesome, but I don't really know how to manage the money here or how to make more money or, and maybe I'm okay. And I just kept thinking, we're making it.
Yeah. What was making it then? Was it just like paying your bills and just living your life, but kind of no extras, just like no vision for the money?
Right. I would help at seminars, and I would do people here in the office and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's not like a steady income in the sense.
Yeah. wasn't like like on purpose. Like I'm very purposefully seeing this many clients a
No.
week or making this amount of money on purpose. It's just kind of like whatever the world hands me.
Yeah. And then to say that it was like, well, it was okay with me. But then I started seeing and listening and thinking, well, okay, what is okay? And how do I make this really work for me? Because I wanted to do more in the sense of mentoring or small group things.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't know how to put them together. And I just kept thinking, it's just listening to the people and where they were going and all the different people and in all the different directions that people were going. It made me excited thinking, okay, there is so much more than me just treating one-on-one all the time, which is great.
Yeah, which is like the core of what we do, right? But it's like when you can have the core support your vision for a bigger life, it makes it even better, I think. That's kind of the reason why I do what I do, because it's one thing to like just be hustling and grinding to pay our bills and love what we do while we're doing that, but it's still a hustle and a grind. What if it's not? Like, what if we're not hustling and grinding and we're just creating a really big, sustainable business that feels good because we set it up to do that? And then we can live this much bigger life, whether you're doing something MFR adjacent and doing MFR treatment, or you're like vacationing more or getting treatment for yourself more, whatever that vision is. It's different for everybody. There's no right or wrong vision, right?
Well, yeah. And I thought of that too. I mean, I'm not wrong about what I'm thinking. A lot of times I'm like, well, is this wrong? Maybe I should do this, or maybe always second guessing.
Yeah. What do you think about like your ability to like trust yourself now and do what you want to do now versus when we first met?
Oh my gosh. I got goosebumps. It just came up. If I knew then what I knew now or something like that. I mean, I had no idea what was out there for me until I started into these classes and listening to all the other people and what they were doing. And it's like, oh my gosh, there is so much out there. And so my head would start popping. I could be doing this. I could be doing that. I could be doing this. I should do that. I should work on my website. Oh yeah, that all kind of got me nervous when I first started, and everything I had to look at. I was like, oh my God, I was overwhelmed. But yeah, I got through the overwhelm, and it took me a while to even get started because I was overwhelmed. And then I got started.
Mm-hmm. Well, which I think is normal too, right? I think we know more than we do. I mean, if you're anything like me, I'm just like, all I need to know are my hands-on skills, and I'm really good therapist and I get my clients results. That's really all I need to know. And yes, but also there's all these businessy skills that are almost just as fun as treatment. They can be just as fun as treatment that we don't know. Like nobody teaches these.
Right.
No, there's not like a place you can go until now to learn these skills on purpose. Just like going to a seminar to learn hands-on skills. And I think some of us get caught up in going to seminars because we feel so good while we're there and we feel seen and we feel connected to other people that are doing what we're doing, but we're not solving business problems. At seminars, we're solving hands-on skills. Mm-hmm. And I went to seminar after seminar after seminar because I wanted that connection piece. And I feel like what I do with my programs is I create that connection piece where we're also learning this completely different skill set that's not something that is learned at seminars through no fault of seminars. Like they are created for a very specific purpose and they serve a very specific needed purpose. And then I come in with a completely different skill set that you don't learn anywhere else.
Right. I was looking for that without knowing I was looking for that, especially the jobby.
Yeah. The jobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. What do you have? Do you have a hobby or do you have a business? Right. And that episode, I think, got so many people like boiling because they were like either offended by it or like it lit their pants on fire. Like, oh, I've been doing it this way, just kind of unknowingly. I didn't know that there was this other option for me if I just started doing these things on purpose.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's what I got out of it. It's like, oh my God, this huge light bulb went off that thought there's more out there. Because and then all that I have learned is I'm not a tech savvy person.
Sure. Doesn't matter though, does it?
Yeah. Yeah. Then it's like, okay, the more I got comfortable putting myself out there on social media, because even now I don't sound like it. I know I'm still nervous. I don't like talking about myself. That's why
Sure.
my story is hard to say. Sometimes I don't say it at all. And a lot of people don't know my whole story because I just don't talk about myself. I can talk about Rick and his skills and get people in here for him. And sometimes I can get them in here I get them in here for me too, but it's easier for me. So I've learned through these things and watching everybody else how to talk more about myself and what people do want to hear. And I had another MFR therapist, actually. We were talking about your classes. She had gone through them. And I was like, I think I just joined. I'm going to join. What's this like? And she was like, oh, I should be back in it. And so we were talking and I was telling her some of the things I had heard and was thinking about. And she said, oh my gosh, Judy, what would happen if you don't share that knowledge you have? And you don't think of it that way, but I do have, 20 some years of the whole gamut.
Yeah.
And I need to realize that. And this class helped me to realize who I am more, which then in turn helped me. I'm starting to do more social media.
Mm-hmm.
Then that lets people out there know, and we get more people coming in and have more ideas. I mean, we kind of get fired up and start thinking about different things to do.
That's so exciting. When I think like this idea of being seen, right, and sharing our story, it can be very painful. It can feel very vulnerable. But at the expense of, if you don't do that, what is the cost to all of the people that you won't help because they don't know? They don't know you. They don't have the time for the connection. They don't know what's possible for them. So I like to think about all of the showing up that I've had to do over the last 4 years. While highly uncomfortable, I'm a pretty introverted person. It's like you get this fire inside of you with this knowledge that you have. And if you don't share it with people, I feel like your fire will go out.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you share it with people, the bigger the fire gets. The more you stoke the fire, you get more creative and you continue to put yourself out there. And if you go back and you look at my social media from 4 years ago, I'm just like swallowing hard, like taking deep breaths on video, like really in the thick of like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And to now, it probably seems like it's very effortless. I still have anxiety. I still struggle to show up, whatever, but I can do it better now because I allowed myself to be so vulnerable in the beginning and so unpolished, right? You just being willing to just do it sloppily and continue to do it, knowing that the more you do it, the better you'll get. I think it's that idea that it has to come out perfect right away out of the gate. It just doesn't. And you're not going to know how to do it until you know how to do something. Same with I think the advice that John gives us at the end of every seminar, specifically at the end of MFR1, he's like, you know enough, you know more than any other therapist out there now about the way the body functions and the way fascia influences. Go and put your skills to work. He never says, take 6 more seminars and then start.
Right.
He's like, start when you go home. And I don't know how many people hear that permission and follow through with that. I definitely heard it. And I was just like, all right, I'm all in. Right. And was just like you, very similar journey, seminar after seminar after seminar to strengthen my skill set there.
I did that with the book. I remember going home and thinking, okay. And I would take the book out and he would say,
yes, and have
take
it
a
next
book
to
out
you.
and yeah, have it somewhere and just pick a technique. And I used to do that. And I still tell people sometimes when I, some therapists, just pick something.
Just pick something.
Yeah, you just took in that class and then do it just to do it and then go on. And I would do that. Yeah, I would. I don't do that really anymore.
But there's no shame in that, right? For all the new therapists that just found this podcast that are listening to this, take advice from me and Judy. We'll be your aunties in this journey together. It's just start somewhere, open that book, whatever book you got from your seminar, and pick one technique to try this week. Or maybe you do it on every single client, whether they need it or not. The worst thing that will happen is nothing, right? So there's just no wrong way to start other than waiting to start. Sometimes people come into my container and I'm like, how many seminars have you taken? And they're like, 6. So I'm brand new. And I'm like, you've had 6 times 20, right? Like hours of training. I think you're probably ready to start.
And personally,
And I'm just like, let's get our hands dirty. We got to get our hands dirty, get our hands on the people and start doing it. Cause it's like that waiting for the right moment or waiting to feel like an expert. It really slows our industry down as a whole. Like there's so many therapists with perfectionism mentality. They don't even know they have it. It's just, I'm just like, just start. Didn't you hear what John said to you at the end of class?
yes, do it. Yes. Well, I remember a lot of things. I remember specifically where I was at and stuff when things happened, like on the mower when I heard your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was at Therapy in the Rocks. I was working a lot of times. After we're done with working in the seminars there, we could go over and help out in the seminars or back and forth, vice versa. And I was over there for an MFR1 class, and I was the patient on the table, and this gal started working on me doing this technique. And I was like, oh my gosh, this was awesome. And she said, well, I'm sorry if I didn't do it right because, I'm just learning this the first time I've learned it, because then she found out that I was an instructor. And sometimes that bothers me because people get intimidated. I'm like, don't do that. I'm just like you.
Yeah.
And she just like got intimidated after the technique and everything. And I'm like, oh, I said, listen, that was the most profound technique. I went into an unwinding. It was like amazing.
Yeah.
It was in MFR1. And I'm like, people, you've got talent. Like John says, you have it. And so he says it from the beginning, and it really resonated with me that even somebody with one class has so much talent to help people.
Yeah. And it's like, you are a John Barnes MFR therapist if you decide that you are, and you go to a seminar and then you go to a few more and you just keep doing the techniques and you keep living in that kind of a culture where this is the modality that you believe in and this is what you do. And there's a stark difference, because there are people that go to seminars and they never do the techniques, right? They don't identify. That's okay. I'm talking about the people that identify as MFR therapists. And I think the sooner you can get yourself into that MFR therapist identity, the better it is for you, for your practice, for our industry, for your patients. Like, just quit dicking around. Just make a decision about, are you an MFR therapist or not?
Right.
And make the next best decision for you and your practice. So I think the world is lucky to have people like you and people, that are making these choices to do these techniques, to be therapists that, let's just be honest, most people don't know what it is that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there can be this kind of animosity in our community, or this thought that like the public doesn't know what we do. They don't know what we do is so good. And that is completely our faults, right? We're the ones not educating. So I'll just stand on my soapbox here and just say, of course, your community doesn't know anything about you or about what you're doing, because you're the one not saying it, not you, Judy, but because you're learning how to talk about yourself even more.
Yeah, I know, but I was one of them. I'm not really saying I was.
Yeah, right. With all this knowledge and this wealth, this fountain of information, and it's like, oh, I don't want people to know. And it's like, we have to quit being our own barrier, I guess, is the moral of this story. And it can be hard. And that's why surrounding yourself with other people that are doing it too is very important. And learning the skills of how to talk about it and what to talk about, because I think we can also get very stuck in the science of MFR and like the stuff that we want to nerd out on. Whereas what's important for our patients to know is that we can help them.
Right. Yeah, and results. That's what you taught us. And it's always in my head now. Things like that are in my head. Results.
Yeah. And it's not that complicated when you think about it. Oh, I help people be able to drive their car, whereas before they had to lay in the car. Like they were not an active participant in that car ride, right? I help you become an active participant in your life and all the ways you do that. And if you don't have your own personal story, then you talk about all the ways you've heard other people do that until you create your own stories.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what your journey has been like in coaching. You listened to a podcast, you decided to join. You were just on my 10K quarterly call. So we know you're making money in your business. What has it been like to go from someone who thought about just having just enough to someone that's creating $10,000 months?
This time last year, never thought I'd be sitting here saying this. Yeah, it's hard to put into words because I didn't have expectations of what I thought. I didn't have I needed to make this much money.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I think I will work in this group, but I want to learn more about the business part and stuff like that. And I learned so much with other people's journeys that helped me get the confidence in my own journey in regards to the social media, the results that hits my head too. Or if I'm talking to another therapist, I'm saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Look at results or whatever. And clients, same thing. It's therapists or clients. What's your results? Look at what's happened to you so far. Look at what's happened in these 2 sessions. Talking about MFR a lot more. I've always been quiet about it. It's actually my family that promotes me more because they're like, oh, she does this stuff, and quick little story. My son-in-law has wrestling people come here from out of states. They do these big wrestling things and they're Olympic wrestlers.
Amazing.
And they come help coach the kids. He was amazed because the guy said, well, we have this MFR therapist that comes and she treats us while we're in the, and he's like, Really? At the Olympics, you have somebody? My mother-in-law does that. So then he's promoting me, because I'm like, I don't say it. But yeah, so he was pretty intrigued. So anyway, the stories people will say about you that you don't know.
Yeah.
People will start talking about you, and they do even more so now. I noticed it, that they'll say, go talk to so-and-so because she does this and this and this and this and this. Even in my small community, people don't know what I do. They know who I am. And they know I'm Candace and Jean's mom, but they don't know who I am. What I've learned is more of that, which has helped me in the business.
Yeah.
And then I made the 10K thinking, well, okay, I didn't expect this, but I did it. And it made me feel good.
Yeah. Well, and do you feel like you know how to do it again? Was it hard?
I feel like I do. I feel like I have more confidence. I can do it again. I can create more things. It's about creating in my own head things to do too. What can I do? Social media this week, that week, what's going on? It opened up creativity, not just about doing the work, but how to tell people about the work, because I am not good at that.
Yeah. And I think it's just because you didn't think about in a way where you broke it down to make it simple to talk about it. I think the overall thought is, it's really hard to talk about MFR. And if I had a dime for every time I've heard someone say that in our community, I would be rich, because it's kind of this epidemic within therapists in our community is they think it's hard to talk about it. So when you think something's hard to talk about, it seems impossible to learn how to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, well, let's just talk about this one aspect of it, which is how it helps you. Okay, that takes a lot of pressure off. I think I can come up with a list of 100 ways this helps somebody, right? And then it's like less about us performing MFR and more about the results of what they get when they have MFR from anybody.
Right.
And in order to get really good at talking about it on social media, you kind of have to get good about talking about it with other humans in a human way. Otherwise, what you post out on social media doesn't really land with the humans, right? Because in a scrolling society, people don't give a shit about piezoelectric responses. They just don't.
Mm-hmm.
But they really do.
They don't know what the word is.
Yeah, they don't know
they
what
look
it
at me
is.
cross-eyed.
Yeah, and they're not going to take the time to look it up. Maybe if they're sciencey, they will. But we're not saying to dumb it down. We're just saying talk about it talk about this other layer of it. And then you can talk about piezoelectric responses in a different environment. But not like, hi, nice to meet you. Let me tell you about the piezoelectric response that's possible for you. Like, why do I care?
Right. And most of my clients, now I'll have a doctor here or there or chiropractor. And sometimes you elaborate a little more on that. But for the most part, I don't. I learned a long time ago to say, basically stop them from talking by saying, hey, let's get on the table. And I just put my hands on them and just get going, and it just kind of goes from there. But the sooner you can just, hey, let's get on the table and put your hands on them, you can calm them down and you can say things about that they can understand. One of the ways I do is just, I'm going to put my hands gently on you right now.
Yeah.
This is going to be different than massage. And then I just start going in my thing while I'm doing it.
Is your MFR practice fully booked and you're bringing in over 50K a year? What if you could scale your business, take time off, and have even more ease and confidence as a business owner? My exclusive Beyond 100K program might be just what you need. Over 6 months, you'll learn how to hire, create a second offer, and take your MFR business to the next level. Applications open soon, so get on the waitlist at www.themfrcoach.com/beyond-100K and be ready to join a group of elite MFR business owners. Let's continue to make MFR mainstream by ensuring you too never under-earn or burn out. This program is designed for those of you who want to set and achieve audacious goals. Get on the list today, www.themfrcoach.com/beyond-100K. Let's talk a little bit about all the years of experience you have and what's next for you outside of your practice. I know you've talked about mentoring people. What does that mean? And what are you doing with that information?
I get a lot of requests of people wanting more information, kind of like what you do when you put a group of people together, you talk about it. They just want to get together and talk about it. So I've tried to put some mentoring groups together of just certain techniques. I'll pick a few techniques and I'll put it out there that I'm going to have a group on such and such date. I've tried to keep it small. I've learned I had quite a few people at one point, which is good. But what I'm learning right now is I think the smaller groups, like 8 people or so, we can get some intimate, more one-on-one. So we go over different techniques that they can either pick out of a book, that I pick out of a book or whatever, depending on their skill level and what they feel like they want to work on. So I structure it to kind of work through a day to where we get time for question and answers. We get time for treatment. We get time for hands-on. So I'm working on that because I feel like that's what people are wanting and they seem to keep calling and wanting more.
Mm-hmm. What is the result of someone getting that kind of mentorship with you?
They go back out there when they come back. I actually have a lot of repeat people and they kind of say, well, I'd like this next time or that next time. And they come back with, I was able to do this on so-and-so. They come back with their own stories.
Mm-hmm. So do you think it enhances their confidence in their hands-on skills? Okay.
They're so much more confident when they leave and they are taking their time. And I see that they're not rushing anything and they're looking for, and I've learned a lot. I know I use that word results from you a lot, but I kind of learned it. They're looking for results. I'm teaching them, look for results. What did you see? What did you see with that person when you just did this? And they come back and tell me, here's results. I saw this and I saw that and I saw this. And so I kind of look at that. I really stole that from you this year and thought that's pretty good because that's what I want them to know is results. What did you just see if you did this one technique and stood that person back up? What did you see happen?
Yeah. And it kind of gets them out of that linear, I have to do this right into what actually went well with this? How did this result?
And so we do a lot of, that's what we do a lot of is results. What did you just see happen? And it doesn't always happen on everybody because not everybody needs it. Not everybody needs an occipital condyle. So you can't always feel that, but other people do need it. And so when they do, and you actually really feel it, then it's like, whoa, you can tell. So it's kind of on the ground, I'm working with it, but I'm getting feedback of what they want and just kind of going with what the people that keep coming back want. And it's like, okay, let's do this. And so I'm growing it and trying to learn myself how to teach others so that they can keep going out. And then as a result, they go to more classes. As a result, a bunch of them just went to another class together. It just keeps the word going as opposed to if I didn't spread any of that here in the Midwest, I feel like that they're going to get stalemate. And so by just bringing this out there to them once in a great while, they keep growing.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think in our industry specifically, because it's so niche and it can feel very lonely, is having these resources and having these assets or these pockets of information that we can get that we can consume, that we can get support from. And it just creates more, right? It creates more of going to seminars. It creates more of paying for myofascial release. It just creates this nurturing environment where there's just more, it doesn't really take away from anything other than your time to go do the thing. Right?
Yeah. And they take the time, or they want to take the time, and they make the time to come. I used to do 3-hour things. Now I do 6 and 7 hours, and we have an hour break, and they love it.
Yeah. Some of our therapists are hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for support, and they are hungry to create varsity level skill sets, right? They want to learn from the source, right? Which would be seminars. And then they also want support in other areas with lots of options.
Right.
Yeah. It's very good. Very good. How can people find out more information, like your mentoring program? Where do people go to find that information?
Well, I'm changed my website that with help from the coaching. It's inspired. Well, it's under www.myofascialkc.com.
Okay.
We're Inspired Body Therapy, but we've changed our name a couple times, and we just kind of left the myofascialkc.com.
Okay.
I have it all on there. Have just like a bits about what we do here, what we do at the mentoring, and then I have a lot of ideas of some things coming up.
Okay, fun. So people can find you at myofascialkc.com.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll put a link in the show notes so people can find you easier. What would you say is the biggest takeaway from being in coaching?
I think for me personally is to trust my own instincts with my business, with my future, and with my clients, kind of all of it. I trust my instincts with my clients. I don't trust my instincts with my business. And so I learned how to do that with my business. And I learned how to feel safe and confident and get my name out there. And so I think that's the biggest thing I've learned. And it took me many months, like almost a year, to say, it's okay to trust what you do and go for it and keep going.
Yeah. And a year isn't that long, right?
I know. I've been in this business forever, and I know how many people I've helped, but I don't talk about it, and I don't.
Well, you do now.
I don't promote it, and I do now.
You're on a podcast talking about it.
I'm on a podcast, which I never thought I'd be.
Right? Ta-da!
I don't sound good on podcasts, so.
How would you know?
I know, right? I haven't done it, so.
So that's not even true.
I mean, I'm like, I can talk about MFR. That'll be fine. But it's like, I got to talk about myself. I always detour.
Right. Well, and like the point of doing these podcasts is people want to know the transformation and the truth about what are you like before you come to coaching? What is the tipping point where you decide, I want to give Heather Hamel $3,000. And then what happens after that? Right? Like, do you actually make your money back? Yes, you made your money back, I think, in a month. I was looking at your profile. Do you grow or change as a person? I think yes. Like the proof of concept is not only have you learned to trust yourself, but you can trust yourself making business decisions. And the other transformation is that you've gone from kind of hiding in the corner to being willing to be the center, and also being willing for the discomfort of trying something new and maybe not everybody loving it.
Right.
And that's okay. Right. It's like, not everybody loves what I do either. And I'm just like out here doing it, because for the people that do love it, it's really changing their lives. And I think we have to tell ourselves the truth about that.
Right. And trusting in that. And that's huge for me, because I would start out, even years ago when I started the business back in 2005, I would have somebody, why are you doing that? Well, how are you going to make any money at that? And then I would automatically think, how am I going to make any money? How am I going to do this?
Yeah. Like, are they right? Yeah.
And the same thing, people were questioning, what I did, especially back then. It was voodoo constantly. And am I in a cult? I'm like, no, I'm not in any kind of cult. And, it was really hard years ago, I should say. It's not as hard now. I think it's because of words out there more.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, you just don't believe what other people say, right? It's like people can say things all they want. It's whether or not you believe it.
Right.
Or give it any time, or give it as much time, right? No airtime to the stuff that's not helpful.
Exactly what you just said, that you've said before. And that is what's helped me. It's helped me to get the negative out and keep my positive going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that, I am worth something money wise, even. I even hate to admit that I never changed my prices forever and ever and ever. I didn't put online scheduling forever and ever and ever because I had to talk to people about this. They think it's weird.
Yeah.
So they need to hear me.
I got to make sure no one thinks I'm a weirdo ahead of time, right? And now you have online booking?
Yeah. And they were like right away. It was like, when I did the online booking, it took me a few months and I listened to other people and I listened to the coaching. But when I finally felt ready, it was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. And right away, it was like, boom, boom, boom. And it was easy, like everybody said.
Oh, I love it.
But it was so hard for me to do because I was so used to talking to everybody, explaining the whole thing, that it's not massage. And I don't have to. They are booking at 5 a.m. and 1 p.m. And I wake up and there's a booking. And I'm like, they come in, they know what they're looking for. It's so different than years ago. And it's so awesome.
Yeah. Well, and part of the change is like your thought about what people need in order to book an appointment, right? When you no longer think that you have to do any kind of convincing or educating ahead of time, that your website can educate, that your online booking can educate, then it allows people the access and the freedom to just book an appointment. And then we believe ahead of time that our clients are smart enough, dedicated enough, can afford it. Like we believe all that ahead of time for the client. So all they need to do is opt in and show up and we're going to take it from there.
Yeah.
It's like so much easier than thinking you have to do all this work to create a client when the clients are there.
And they want this when they come in because they've already seen it. And I updated but I had an old website and I'm still updating it right now, but I updated the website and made a huge difference. There was so many things that I wasn't thinking of. The website, Facebook, all those things were outdated.
Yeah, you got to make it easy for people to opt in, like have all of your information on your website up to date. So I'm super glad to hear you're making those changes. Those are $100,000 changes, right? That don't cost you much to change.
No.
And the benefits very quickly.
And it didn't cost me anything I've had that program forever for online, or not ever, but like 2 or 3 years. And I finally did the online scheduling about 6 months ago, or, halfway into the program.
Yeah. So now it pays for itself.
And now it's more than paid for itself. Yeah. and I don't even talk to the people till they come in,
Yeah. Saves you so many hours.
Yeah.
I love that. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we wrap up?
I would just say, I remember the day on my mower. It's not a jobby anymore to me. And so for those that haven't heard that story or whatever, what is it that you want? Because you can actually get more than you want out of this program. I had an idea of what I wanted out of the program, but I don't even remember what it was because I've got so much more confidence and I've done this 20 years, it's like, we're all the same. I'm just like anybody else.
Yeah. It's like it's never too soon or never too late, no matter where you're at in your practice. And you're not the only one who's been in business for 20 years that's come into coaching that's had a result
right.
from this. Like it's never too late.
No, because everything goes ahead of you. Like, just the computer world, IT world itself, and just trying to make ads or do things. That's way ahead of us, So when you're around a group of people that says, hey, I use ChatGPT or whatever, I'm like, what's that? And then I learned about it and then I used it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I've learned so much. I can't even tell you how much by listening to what other people have done. That's why I did this. That's why I'm where I'm at, I think. And I feel pretty confident that I'll be even double next year because I've just got so much excitement going.
Yeah. And the skill set to talk about and sell MFR, and you really can't have that taken away from you. It's only going to get better the more you use that tool. And you can use it for anything.
Yeah, it's for life. Yeah, there's a lot of things I've used out of this class for my life in general.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so I appreciate all the effort and work you do. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
Well, it's fun, right? And I set this up in a way where I can continually feel inspired and think and have a lot of time to think about new concepts. And I also really care deeply about your results. And so I'm always thinking about how can we get that result sooner? How can we get that result easier? Where am I confusing people? Where am I slowing people down? And revamping it. That's why you've seen a complete revamp of the whole portal in the 1 year you've been in the program. It's like, oh, that was brand new when you joined, and it's been brand new again before you're done.
Right.
We like to simplify and make it easier, add trainings that really have a high impact and remove trainings that don't.
There's a lot in that portal, and it's a lot easier. I mean, I didn't think it was hard before, but then when you put an easier one out there, it's like, okay, this is even easier and faster. Because the first 90 days is overwhelming because all of a sudden you got to look at all these facts and figures, a lot about facts. And I've learned, I always put that in my head too, facts and figures.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot by that. But at first I was overwhelmed and I had to keep putting it down. Like, I can't do this. And I got through it and it's like, oh, it was not that bad.
Right. And it's okay if it takes you 95 days or if it takes you 100 days, but it's the importance of getting that stuff done in 90 days is that you've got it done because it affects every other decision that you're going to make. And the sooner you get through that and you do that really uncomfortable work of like looking at your numbers and actually writing this stuff out, everything else is easier. So it's like you do the hard part first, and then everything else is just finessing and tweaking and really learning how to sell MFR and overcome objections, like once you've got all of your numbers out of the way. And believe it or not, this program used to only be 12 weeks at a time. We would do all of this and all of the coaching in 12 weeks. And I have a lot of people that hit 100K in their first year with only 12 weeks of coaching, believe it or not.
Wow. Yeah, I'm struck.
Yeah, it can be done, but I do like that there's this surrounding of having that whole year because a lot happens. A lot happens when you hit 10K and you can freak out and have imposter syndrome and then start to really go downhill or like think that nothing's working, or you can get sick, or whatever happens. You can get a bad review and get spun out. So I just like having that surround care around everybody. The other thing I wanted to share with you, I don't know if you saw that I posted this in the Facebook group today, but our group in the last year, so August 2023 to August 2024, just hit over $4 million in sales of MFR only. And that's just with the small group of just over 100 therapists who have been in and out of the program in this last year. Isn't that wild? The first year of the program, $4 million in sales.
That's awesome. So that's a lot of people out there just growing and growing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I just think about me, but then the think about it in that realm is huge.
Yeah. Well, and like every dollar reported counts. Everybody's business counts towards that, whether you're a 100K earner or you've only made your first $500 or your first dollar in your business. Every single person's business has counted towards that that's been in this group. That gives me goosebumps because it's so fun.
Well, and then you think about that amount of money, that amount of people that it's touched. Can you imagine? It's 8 million people it's probably touched, who knows?
Yeah, I know. And it's
when you put the money towards the people, it's like, oh my gosh, look at how many millions of people have been touched by the MFR.
Yeah. And when I think about our group being mainly women, lots of single women, being able to have access to this amount of money or to become high income earners changes changes lives for generations. And the impact is huge. So I think being able to change our ideas about enough money, what is enough, or is it okay to earn more than enough, and creating that safety so that it does impact not only just our industry, but the women and the people in this industry and their lives forever and the future generations to come.
Yeah, I believe that. And I love that idea. I was one of them. I mean, I grew up in a loving family, but it was men that does everything and men that makes the money and so my mentality is I'm not valued that much.
Yeah. Or that you're just not in the position to make those decisions just because you never did. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to create the safety, put yourself in rooms where it's normalized, and then learn by inspired behavior, right? Like if someone else did it, I can do it too.
Right. And that's what's created. There's so many things that really just can't put to words that's created, and all the aspects that you have when it comes to either the readings or the listening or the participating or just listening and not having to participate.
Yeah, there's lots of options for all the different learning types. Yes.
Right. And that helps me too, because I don't always want to talk, but then it's like, you didn't have to. I could just always be on there and listen or talk if you wanted to,
Yeah.
So.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Thank you so much for being a valued member in our student community inside the Foundations program. And I really look forward to all the updates from your mentorship business, from your MFR business, and whatever you have yet to even create.
Yeah. More to come. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Everybody make sure you check the show notes so that you can find more information on Judy's mentorship program, and tune in next week for another episode of the MFR Coaches Podcast. We'll see you then. Bye. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a minute and rate and review the podcast. I appreciate it. For more information, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The MFR Coach. And check out my website, www.themfrcoach.com, for more information. If you are currently not working 20 hours or less and making six figures in your MFR business, I want to help you change that. Make sure you tune into the show and get on my email list so you never miss out on important trainings and information. To be the first to find out when we are enrolling next for my 12-month Business Foundations coaching program, get on that email list at www.themfrcoach.com/join. Inside this program, you'll learn how to raise your rate, overcome objections, and sell MFR. You'll become the MFR therapist that never under-earns and never burns out. It's up to us to make MFR mainstream, and it starts with you and your successful MFR practice. See you next week.